I need you to
worry.
ask a question.
Why did none of your agencies, and do none of your agencies, give in a report to the community on how you failed last year so that we can start the process of trusting you this year? Is that a good enough question, Reverend?
So those of you who've been at other meetings with me when we talk about these issues of what does legitimacy and police legitimacy being restored back into the community look like. Part of that is always an acknowledgement of where you may have fallen short. But also part of that is an acknowledgement that that means there's an opportunity to identify where you've fallen short and then to course correct. From everything I know and from every report that has come out, although I don't know individually about the reports, we are all very familiar with the Heaphy report. As reports have come out that have identified gaps and have identified where we've not been successful, the fact that everyone is here is saying, we acknowledge those. There isn't a single person that I don't know of or an agency that has not acknowledged the legitimacy of the reports, and then we respond to those. And that's how you learn, and that's how you then regain trust in the community to say, this is where we have not necessarily performed to excellence, and then we start trying to meet that need. The goal here, and the goal will be safety and security. And there's that balance that we're going to have to achieve between safety and security and those accesses to convenience and accesses to these events. So I can appreciate that we may not be starting out on the first day with your trust and belief in our competencies, but all I can tell you is that we are here. We're here right in front of you, willing to take whatever hard question that you ask of us and work towards making sure those same types of events do not occur again. I say we have the opportunity to change the narrative of the events. We have the opportunity for Charlottesville to define how Charlottesville wants to be viewed by the nation and the rest of the world. So part of what we ask is that help us prepare. Show us where the gaps are that you saw last year, and then we respond to that with the resources, the training, the expertise to be able to fill those.
Hi. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that I was very grateful last year that a shot was not fired off by the police, because I work in a trauma center, and I know what that can do and what kind of bloodbath that can ensue. But anyways, on to the question. Having seen Mr. Kessler getting his permit to march in DC, but also his response on the web that he will not be stopped, that they will show up. I guess the question is, how safe am I? How much of a response do you expect from the white supremacists? How much, I guess, what can I expect? I live down here on Cherry, and I have several events that I go to at a local church on the downtown mall, and I also swim at the Washington Park pool, and I just kind of want to know, should I batten down the hatches, or should I, not live my life? Like, how much do I let them win, and how much can I prepare for, I guess, is the question.
Thank you. So I think, as I mentioned earlier about preparedness, we're going to be sending out, as we get closer, more detailed information about specific actions you can take based on information that we get as a public safety community. But what I can tell you right now is that we're going to do everything we can to keep people safe, but there comes a time in every type of emergency where our message may be, don't be downtown. And that's part of the shared responsibility. The front end of that is we are doing everything we can to keep people safe and to keep our folks safe as well. But as I said, there may come a moment where we say that the safest thing you can do is not be downtown, and that if you choose to, because you're passionate about exercising your constitutional rights, which is wonderful. Understand then that you'll be assuming a degree of risk. I hope that answers your question.
Another resource I draw your attention to is we have a page of frequently asked questions that we're getting. We've made that available tonight. If you didn't get a copy, we should have some outside. It's also on the city's website. Some of those questions we don't know the answers to yet. We get the question, is there a permit for something to happen in the park? And right now there is no approved permit for anything to happen in Emancipation Park. We are in federal court with Mr. Kessler, and his request, which was denied late last year, that request is now in federal court. We won't know the outcome of that case until July 24th. So some of the things you're going to hear our speakers talking about is preparing for unknowns on that front. What is going to happen in the park, and when will we know that? As soon as we know something, we're going to share it, and we know that will impact all of your personal decisions about whether you want to be downtown or not. Next question.
Hi, I'm Roberta Williamson. Good evening. Thank you for being here. My question, Reverend Edwards, is how much trust will you place in people like me? If I don't tell you that I know that something is going on, it's because I don't have any trust in you. Because last year, I stood at a meeting like this and I offered help, and it was not received. It was not taken. And my feeling very strongly is we're going to take care of ourselves again. And maybe after this year, we might be able to cooperate with you, because I don't see me sitting at that table tonight. Sitting with you at that table, having planned all year. I am pretty upset about this. I am very worried about it. I do not trust the fascists. I do not trust the Nazis, and I do not trust the KKK. I do trust the Antifa, because all of the people that I know who are involved are nonviolent. The clergy. I want to know, will you trust us? Thank you.
I'll respond really quickly, and really based on my purview, having been here since May. So one of the things that we heard, and we heard loudly, and one of the things that we have, did my mic, one of the things that we heard and heard loudly, and when I say that we heard it, we mean that we understood it, was that people certainly felt as if they had information to share and that it fell on deaf ears. And so one of the things that we have tried hard to do is to solicit information and to find safe ways and in some instances anonymous ways for people to share that information. I know that we have anonymous ways on our website for the police department at the University of Virginia. I can assure you that all of that information is looked at. I also have had just a number of community members reach out to me and say, would you listen if I shared information with you? And so what I do with that information is I give it to our analysts, and it does go somewhere. And if you are sending it to us, I can assure you that it is being vetted and it is being looked at. And I think I'm just one comment on that.
I appreciate the comments of the folks that have come up, and your points are well taken. We appreciate you. I said that earlier. What I would like to reiterate to the points that we made earlier is, since August, we've been working together collectively in preparation for the anniversary of this August. That effort has been huge. As individual agencies, we've been committed to doing comprehensive internal reviews and after-action reports and trying to learn from the lessons learned or the things that we did wrong last year. As I stated earlier, the Virginia State Police will be present in the week leading up to August the 12th anniversary. What's going to be different this year about the Virginia State Police? We're going to have state police here. They're going to be equipped, resourced, and postured in a manner as to where they can react appropriately, along with our other partners that we've been training with from Charlottesville City Police Department, Albemarle County, University of Virginia Police Department, as well as our fire and EMS partners. And they're going to be arrayed appropriately to be able to respond to any incidents that may come up. Now, if you come forward, the police officers that are going to be out nearest the perimeters, we're going to make sure that they're mature and seasoned enough to talk to you and receive your input. But going forward from here, this evening, you can contact us and share information that you might be getting from the community relative to the opposing views that were mentioned. And we want that information, and we're interested in it. Thank you.
I would only add that there has to be at least one person in your community that you feel comfortable sharing information with, who then could get it to us. Because you're right, not everyone trusts law enforcement. But that's why you have a lot of liaisons in the community who can serve a different role. The reason I think we are often holding these events in our churches are because they're safe spaces. You can then talk to your pastors to try and get information that way if you don't trust coming directly one-on-one with individuals. There's also persons who are in the communities, who are your neighborhood representatives. I would say if you can identify a person that you trust, who then has a relationship that can get us that information. I appreciate that we weren't here last year. There are quite a few of us who physically did not live in Charlottesville, were not actively engaged, were not part of the Charlottesville community. So I can understand that you don't even trust us as outsiders coming in based on our profession that we represent. But in order for us to be successful, and as Chief Baxter said, to have a metrics to define that success, at some point we all have to figure a way to be able to communicate with each other that allows us to continue to foster a relationship of some sort. Not that we're going to trust each other on day one, but their opportunity has to exist. The space has to exist for that to be done safely and for that information to get forward. And hopefully that at least answers your question.
Next.
Good evening, Angeline Kahn.
Can you move a little closer to the mic?
Oh, yes.
there?
I would like to give you a visual of what took place last August 12th. So you're prepared for the people that weren't here or the people that didn't experience what many of us in the community as activists and just civilians walking on the downtown mall faced. We're talking about paramilitary with 5 to 6 guns, some of them being as tall as toddlers, in our faces, literally in our faces. I'm going to show you my pictures. You can pass them around, and you can prepare off of this.
While they're looking at those, I'll share that we have an agenda item on City Council's meeting Monday, July 16th, related to events occurring downtown and what sorts of items would be prohibited from being brought inside certain perimeters. So those of you interested in knowing what the city is doing on that front, please follow the actions of City Council on Monday night.
To those activists.
Yeah, I know. I've spent a lot of time looking at video and pictures from last year.
I do. And so it's very important for that. Thank you. Oh, it is a question. Yeah, I'm good. I'll talk.
Thank you. Katrina?
Hi. July 8th, when the Klan came, the police faced us. August 11th, when they surrounded the church we were in, nobody did anything. August the 12th, right in front of the Virginia State Police, one of the alt-right gave my spit in this woman's face right in front of the Virginia State Police. When I asked him, what were you gonna do about it? He said it was nothing that they could do. The only thing they could do was inform Charlottesville Police Department and they were to handle it. So is that gonna be different this time? If something happens, no matter what police is right there, are they gonna be able to intervene? Or are they gonna have to get in touch with Charlottesville again? That's one. And then two, I'd like to know why this meeting was held when the Charlottesville pilgrimage was going on, when so many people who should have been here tonight aren't here, including Susan Bro, Heather Heyer's mom. I just wanted to know why it was held tonight without the people that were supposed to be here.
Yes, ma'am. Our law enforcement partners are going to be well postured to respond and be assertive as needed, and respond to any criminal matters that might need our attention. I can't address the question relative to the timing of this meeting.
Yep, the calendar's on me, so thank you for that feedback. And I think, you ought to know that July is a very packed month for us as far as scheduling these meetings. And we're having a mix of both public briefings. We have a major one with downtown businesses next week. And we will be doing 5 next week, 6 the week after. So we're trying to get out in the community as much as we can. And I am sorry that this one conflicted with that trip. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm not going to try to bend down for that. Question I have for you, I hear that no permits have been granted. I hear that paramilitary groups have stated they won't return armed and organized in uniform. But Kessler has said he is going to be back, and groups that he has worked with have said they are going to be back. So my question for you is, what are you going to do when he and his troops show up armed? Because as you said, you can't ban guns. It's interesting you're going to say banning clubs and sticks when you can't ban guns seems not very helpful. And I look at groups like Redneck Revolt, which did step in between peaceful counter-protesters and violent white supremacists and Nazis when police did not. And they are not coming back either because of the lawsuit. So that's where I think I am, and I think a lot of other people are, is when Kessler shows up, not if, when he and his troops show up armed, are you going to do anything about it? Is he going to get arrested for violating the lack of a permit? Is he going to be escorted out? Are you just going to stand and watch while they attack us again?
I'll say briefly before I turn it over to the chief that the city ordinance aims to ban everything that was weaponized that we could imagine that we could get into an ordinance that would fit the Dillon law or the Dillon rule in the state of Virginia. So we've inserted those items for that reason. And I know you were here at the beginning, and we had aims for lots of restrictions on firearms that were unsuccessful. I would stress again that our approach is a approach that says that all those folks will come and to plan for that and that they will be armed. And so all the different contingencies within the plan include exactly what you're talking about.
So I agree with you, and here's where I agree. Lawbreakers do not care about our ordinances. They don't care about our legislation. They don't care about statutes. Otherwise, they wouldn't do the things that they do anyway. So permit, no permit, were our plans as a group. We know somebody is coming to Charlottesville. We know that someone, regardless, is going to use this as an opportunity for their national platform to be heard. So I don't care when any judge makes any decision about Kessler. My thoughts are somebody's coming here, and shame on us if we don't plan for whoever might show under whatever name they come up here for. That's our planning strategy.
I also want to thank you for being here. Meetings like this last year would have been so helpful. I was part of a team last year between July 8th and August 12th that was supposed to meet with the police to talk about the community perspective, and that didn't happen as permits were flying and people were trying to plan for what eventually happened. To follow up the question about will you trust us, and I'm glad to hear that there are avenues of communication, that you're communicating with each other, and we can communicate with you. In building this relationship with the community, my real question is, will you understand us? You have to know that when you say, we may tell you not to show up, that for a white woman, no, seriously, for a white woman, I'm a Quaker practicing, I will. If the KKK comes here, I will be there for all of my black community members who can't be. So that's not an option. That, for me, is a moral mandate. It has nothing to do with my First Amendment rights. For me, it feels like a moral mandate because I can show up. I'm not part of the targeted group. I hope that you'll go into that. My question is, will you understand that?
Yes, ma'am, we got it.
Okay.
But it's our position that we have to tell you.
I know, but we felt punished last year because we felt like we were told not to show up, and we did, and everybody was like, we told you not to show up. Do you know?
We understand fully that those folks with extreme opposing views from everybody in this room, I'm going to make the assumption, if one of those folks comes to town, there's going to be 100 folks to come out and say, we don't agree with you. We get it. That's why we're preparing for that worst case scenario and making sure that we're resourced, equipped, and postured and ready to respond to whatever happens. And the word respond is very key. We're going to be active and assertive. So expect interactions with the police. Expect them to be dressed in various uniforms because we're going to be out and about doing what we do. Not a lot of standing around. There will be some police officers and law enforcement type standing perimeters, but there's going to be many, many people out and about working and patrolling. But yes, we understand you're coming.
Okay.
We get it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I want to make a comment before I ask my question. And I think Jeff Fogel was right that there has been behind the scenes acknowledgement of what went wrong, and you're reacting to all of that. But this community never had their chief of police come and say, we messed up. They never had the city say, we messed up. And I think part of healing is having somebody say, it didn't do well. We really didn't do it right. And I realize there's lawsuits, there's all these things, but somehow acknowledging that really in a public statement or in some way would be significant. My point is, I think most of us here organized in some way last year because we knew the city was going to fail us. We didn't understand how much it would fail us, but we felt that. So there were people that organized to have medics. There were people that organized to protect people. There were people that did all sorts of things. I'm on the downtown mall. We organized so that there were places that were open, so that there was food, so that there were all these things. And what I keep saying is, you all are organizing, saying trust us, and I think this whole community here wants to be part of the team that is discussing how we do this and be included, as opposed to it being simply a you all know best, because I think we all have skills and expertise that it's not just me reporting that I know something, but I want to know how you're going to engage us, so that if I think that you're not going to have enough medics and you think you are, and maybe I have a volunteer team that comes in, how do we coordinate if I'm trying to do something else? And I see that as a critical piece that isn't in this discussion.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I would go back to what I said before about that's the shared responsibility, and it's a challenge for us, again, apart from civil disturbance, that's a challenge that all communities face with a hurricane or a tornado or an earthquake or whatever the case may be, is how do you integrate both in the planning process, as you indicate very, very correctly, and then in the response post-disaster or post-event.
And
how do
even
you
during the event.
Yeah, and how do you integrate that? And what I would go back to is that the FEMA expectation, which we all have at the federal, state, and local level, is that an individual citizen will be able and capable of taking care of themselves for 3 days. That's one of the operational assumptions of all of our planning. So what does that look like when we're talking about a civil unrest environment? And that's new for us. So I welcome the question. I welcome further discussions. I think we all do about how we can engage.
And I think just having a liaison for us to communicate, not simply a report, but this is what we're doing, is this helpful, and how do we do it together?
Right. The only thing I would add, though, is to make sure that it is a two-way conversation.
Right.
And part of that might be, please don't do that. That's not helpful.
Right.
Well-intentioned and helpful aren't necessarily the same thing, but I think we can absolutely, I'd love to build that out as to the degree that we can, not just for August,
No, I think for
but
all,
forever,
for all
right?
things, it's important.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great point.
I love that, because we don't know intrinsic resources, right?
Right.
People don't know what's out there until you know what's out there. And what I tell people is the best way is to have a way to tell us about it, because it's hard for me to solicit from every person out there and every stakeholder, because I don't know who they all are.
Right.
That is an amazing point. I love it.